Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Maverick News channel. We have the G7 kicking off in Canada. The G7 Economic Summit. We'll share that with you. We have the latest on the Iran-Israel conflict. And we have bad dad Father's Day jokes that I'll share with you later in the broadcast. Stay with me. Lots to share tonight.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are Maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Okay, we're back, and I'm just going to get some live cam action up on the screen here for you tonight from Tehran, Tel Aviv, and more. Let me just make sure this is full screen, and it is. So this is live right now. Both sides of the Iran-Israel conflict. And it looks like we might have some, something in the air. That's just, I think, an aircraft, perhaps. Bottom left-hand corner. But overall, quiet at the moment. Except for what's something going on down there. On the bottom of the screen center, pulsing light. Looks like maybe a fire. So anyway, we have our eye on the situation there. And we'll come back to that during the broadcast. Not just that, but the latest information on that conflict. All eyes on the Middle East. And, of course, on Donald Trump, who is on his way to the G7 summit in Alberta, Canada, kicking off today. This was Trump just a short time ago, or just a little earlier today, not long ago, departing. kind of unusual because there's so much that has changed geopolitically. Back to Rob. Real time, we focus will be much on the politics.
Novel idea, right?
As
Count on
on
our suits to stay put, no matter
anything
what.
else. Hang on a second. Gathering
President Trump, will you come take our questions?
Photographers, videographers at Calgary Airport. Shooting videos snapping stills of planes of world leaders as they arrive. So we're watching. The whole world is watching. The messages are being sent in very subtle ways, I think, and in ways that and it's just Trump a destabilizing force within the G7 and NATO and the West. So the G7, of course, is this informal grouping of 7 advanced economies. It's made up of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and of course the United States, with the European Union as a permanent non-enumerated member, represented by European Council President Antonio Costa and European Commissioner President Ursula von der Leyen. Now, in addition to G7 leaders, Prime Minister Carney has extended invitations to several non-member countries to address global challenges. Confirmed attendees include Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, the Prime Minister of Australia, President of South Korea, President of Brazil, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, Saudi Arabia Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was invited, but his attendance remains unconfirmed even at this point. And notably, Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto declined the invitation to meet with Singaporean and Russian leaders instead. Now, the summit's opening day today was dominated by discussions on the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran. Now, in its third day of intense missile exchanges, leaders expressed urgent concern over the violence, which has killed over 200 in Iran and at least 14 in Israel, with hundreds injured on both sides. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, attending his first G7 summit, called for a ceasefire, echoing sentiments from French President Emmanuel Macron and Italian Prime Minister Giorgio Meloni. And President Trump also is attending his first G7 since 2019 and has been facing questions about his administration's reported veto of an Israeli plan to assassinate Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, a claim denied by Israeli officials. Interesting. We'll come back to the G7, but we do have this report on that from NBC, which claims to have broken that story. I'll just bring that up, share it with you. That really made my antenna go up as soon as I heard this earlier today, because it raises larger questions about allegations of a desire for regime change within Iran. Here's the NBC report that precipitated all this.
We have some big breaking news out of the Middle East. A U.S. official tells NBC News President Trump rejected a proposal from Israel in the last few days to assassinate Iran's supreme leader. It is yet another huge twist in that developing conflict. Let's go right to NBC's Vaughn Hilliard, who's at the White House for us. Vaughn, so we heard from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in just this past hour. What did he say?
When directly asked about this report, he did not directly refute its contents, but when it came to conversations between the U.S. and Israel, he suggested that they are, quote, false reports. Now, a U.S. official tells me that this is accurate, that in fact Israel had come to President Trump with the proposed plan to kill Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. This would be a remarkable effort if it had been, in fact, executed. Of course, this is at the heart of the conversation as to the extent that the U.S. is engaged with Israel's own military actions against Iran. Bibi Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, in just the last hour, acknowledging that he is, quote, fully coordinated with President Trump and that the White House was aware of its actions before the initial airstrikes took place earlier this week. At the same time, the White House has not engaged in any further military actions in terms of airstrikes on Iran specifically, but it has continued to assist in defensive efforts through the use of military pilots shooting down drones that are going into Israeli airspace. And so for this White House, they are well aware of the threats from Iran to strike U.S. military bases. And Bibi Netanyahu, over the last hour, suggesting that President Trump will make the decisions that are, quote, best for America. Where that is what led Israel sixth round of talks between the U.S. and Iran over nuclear negotiations with other Middle East intermediaries. But again, the headline speaks for itself here. Of course, there are questions about how far Iran, or I should say Israel, is willing to take its military effort against Iran. Netanyahu suggesting that they will proceed until their uranium enrichment capacity is completely demolished. And it's a question of whether Iran will stand down, especially in the face of such knowledge that the U.S. and Israel had engaged in explicit conversations about carrying out an assassination plan of their supreme leader.
I'll say this, too. We've seen conflicting statements coming from the Trump administration, which is pretty much par for the course for the way things have been rolling since Trump came back into office. First, Marco Rubio says the United States had no involvement, no prior knowledge of Israel's attacks on Iran, which clearly were many months, maybe even years in the making. Then Trump comes out shortly after and says, well, I did know about much of what was going on. And now we're seeing that there's this report of him vetoing a plan to take the attack so far that they would assassinate the Ayatollah, which could be very, very destabilizing. The fog of war, and there's all kinds of propaganda out there and just, straight out fabricated information since the attacks began, with both Israel and Iran trading blows. I've seen much in the fog of war come to the surface, not the least of which is a claim that two F-35s were shot down by Iran, two Israeli F-35s, which Israel claims is not true. And this, of course, would have been groundbreaking unprecedented because the F-35 is a fifth generation fighter, stealth capabilities, never been shot down before. And then it went from 2 to a claim of 1 and a claim that they've captured an Israeli pilot. Israel denying all of it, don't know. Then there have been, just other recycled pieces of propaganda, which I've seen used before, like allegations that, or just claim that as a result of these attacks, we've had the U.S. Embassy in Iraq attacked. Somebody sent me that the other night, trying to get me to bite on it. I didn't run it because, of course, it's a lie, like so many others that are fed to me, and others fed to me because people want me to put it on and run it. And I'm not doing that. Not if I can identify the misinformation and the outright lies, I'll avoid doing that. But thanks for sending it just the same. So we keep our eyes on all of this. Now, one thing that is true is that Pakistan has come out in support of Iran. They've declared strong support amid the escalating conflict with Israel, which entered its third day today of missile exchanges. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, in a phone call with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, my apologies for the pronunciation, expressed complete solidarity with Iran, condemning Israel's strikes on Tehran's nuclear and military facilities as a, quote, grave threat to regional stability. Sharif urged the United Nations to take urgent steps to halt the violence, which has killed, as I say, I'm getting conflicting numbers through the day today, but in some cases, some reports saying the number of casualties on the Iranian side as high as 200, possibly. Those numbers should become clearer in the days ahead. And again, at least 14 killed in Israel. So Pakistan's defense minister, speaking to the National Assembly, called for Muslim nations to unite against what he is calling Israeli aggression. Vowing Pakistan would safeguard Iran's interests at international forums, including the UN, and urged the Organization of Islamic Cooperation to convene and sever diplomatic ties with Israel. He said, quote, "If we remain silent today, every Muslim nation will face the same fate." He warned, citing Israel's actions in Yemen and Palestine. Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar also condemned Israel's attacks as a brazen violation of Iran's sovereignty, reiterating Pakistan's support in a call with Iranian Foreign Minister Sayed Abbas Araghchi. And Pakistan, which does not recognize Israel, has warned its citizens against traveling to Iran due to the intensifying conflict. And again, all this comes as G7 leaders are meeting today in Canada, grappling with this crisis. And opinion on this very polarized, of course, which gets us all the way back to Canada and the G7, where we have seen Mark Carney playing host to world leaders, and most notably dominating the events there today. We had Mark Carney and Keir Starmer meeting, and I think that has been intentional. They've played that up, and I think that it's fairly clear that the reason for this is because of Donald Trump's comments about Canada joining the United States as the 51st state. So just like having the king deliver the throne speech, coming to Canada to do so in the House of Commons, this display of solidarity between the UK And Canada, I think, is meant to send a clear message to Mr. Trump and the 51st staters.
Hey, how are you? Great to see you.
How are you, Mr.? Very good to see you. Thank you very much.
Donald Trump.
Okay. Well,
Not the
good
other
morning,
one
everyone.
making a grand
Bonjour tout le
entrance.
monde. Happy Father's Day for those celebrating. It's a great pleasure to welcome Prime Minister Starmer and Aidan Gomez here this morning to Ottawa, to Centre Block. The Government of Canada has been working closely with Cohere, one of Canada's and one of the world's leading AI companies, many applications that we can use, that Canadian businesses can use, and the world can use. And we're absolutely thrilled that a partnership is developing between the United Kingdom and Cohere. Prime Minister will speak to that in a moment. But I'll just say one other thing, which is that the UK, Canada we'd like to say as well, have been one of the pioneers in not just AI development, but also the safety and security of the applications of AI to really realize the full potential. And we're deepening the collaboration between Canada's AI Safety Institute and the new UK Security Institute. And this is going to help to realize the full potential for all our citizens. So, Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mark and Aidan, as well. Thank you. I think this really symbolises the joint work we can do together on what is a really important next frontier, AI, tech, and the transformation that is going to be brought around in this relationship and what we can do, whether that's the delivery of government services, public services, infrastructure, energy, you name it. And it's really good. And I think it's a real indication of the strength of the relationship between our two countries that we're able to bring this together in this joint way. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for this opportunity, and I'm much looking forward to the way in which we're going to continue to work together.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. Yeah.
We're super excited to be partnering with both governments. I think this is personally quite special to me as the son of a Canadian father and British mother. So it's a really special moment to be with both of you, and Cohere is excited to strengthen the innovation of both of our countries, as well as the sovereignty. So thank you for your partnership and your support.
Oh, thank you.
Very good. Okay, well, that is the foundation on which to grow. So we will continue with the bilateral conversation. All right, thanks again.
Great.
Thank you all.
Okay, so more to come on that, but let's go back to what Trump was saying earlier today as he was departing for the G7 summit.
We're going to Canada. Last night was a tremendous success. It was a fantastic audience. It was supposed to rain. They gave it a 100% chance of rain, and it didn't rain at all. It was beautiful.
That was great.
And so I asked if they gave it 100% chance, right? 100% it was going to rain like crazy, and it didn't rain at all. How did they predict 100 years out, and 50 years out, or 200 years out? They didn't do too well for weather people last night, but it was beautiful.
Very hard to hear him.
How to deal with the law. Well, they get along very well, and I will tell you that I think they have great respect for each other.
Mr. President, thank you. President Barzani said that you are a leader for solution. What is your response for him?
Mr. President, can you give us a sense of what you're doing to try to de-escalate the situation between Iran and Israel? Well, I hope there's going to be a deal. I think it's time for a deal, and we'll see what happens. But sometimes they have to fight it out. But we'll see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal.
Mr. President,
Netanyahu going after the Supreme Leader, sir? Protesters, if we didn't have the National Guard on call and ready, they would rip Los Angeles apart. They come and they check and they say, is the National Guard going to be there? And if the National Guard's being there, then they don't even show up.
Mr. President, are you planning to meet with President Zelensky?
I've asked Israel to fly their airplanes to Iran. Well, I don't want to say that. Mr. President, to have some crazy amount at the G7 Well, we have our great work. All we have to do is send a letter. This is what you're going to have to say. But I think we'll have a few weeks
So that's terrible here. Terrible audio. Okay, so what I got from that was he was saying he still thinks there could be some sort of a deal made. He's always trying to make a deal. But we know that the nuclear talks have been basically shut down. And he was asked about the allegations that he vetoed the assassination plan on the Ayatollah. Kind of brushed that off. Couldn't really tell what he said there with regard to that. And it began everything by talking about his parade and trying to gloss over the fact that he had very light attendance, blaming it on weather forecasts, which he said were 100% calling for rain, which is true. There were calls for inclement weather, but I don't think they got anywhere near the kind of turnout he was hoping for yesterday. And I did mention, you may recall, I said he doesn't look happy. He looks kind of glum there, chum, sitting up in the stands. And as the tanks were rolling by, you had many empty spots in the bleachers. It's just a fact. I can't help it. I can't make this stuff up. I did notice as well that the production values for the televised program didn't seem to be anywhere near at the caliber or the level of what we've seen from similar authoritarian displays, especially from Russia, where they have elaborate crane shots, making it look like you've got a flying camera going through the parade. They did not invest nearly as much, and the display was not nearly as elaborate or as polished, frankly. Now, it's Trump's first go at being a that kind of leader. So with that kind of display, marking not just the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army, but let's face it, it was his birthday. He wanted a big bash. And that's why he's taking so much flack online. And when you contrast the light turnout at his parade against the massive protests that took place literally in thousands of cities yesterday, the No Kings protests, that I no way to know how many people came out. I mean, it was massive. Let's just face it. I'm hearing all kinds of different numbers thrown around, but you can't deny these images from city after city. And then, of course, Trump's main political opponent right now is Gavin Newsom, governor of California, who posted this on his social media channels today. So you get these like quick cut videos, super cuts, I think they call them, these reels, or it depends on the platform that you're looking at what they call them, but the short form videos. And you're getting a lot of these things. Oh, it's not just Newsom capitalizing on the low turnout. Trump seems to think that Putin is his best friend or something, but even over in Russia, you're getting similar kinds of videos being posted mocking him. See if I've got one here. Yeah, here it is here, I think. No, I don't have it. It's okay. Maybe we'll cue it up later in the broadcast. But you are seeing other things like this. It did. I'm certain this thing yesterday did not go off the way Trump was hoping. Not at all. You're getting this kind of stuff, and it's just low hanging fruit. Just too easy. After that low energy display yesterday. In fact, here I do have the yeah, this is what the Russians have been posting. Here we go. Donald, I don't think that you're a friend, not really. You need to wake up, man. Hang on, where did it go? There it is. Okay. Not your friend, dude. Bring it back up. So many things to click on just to get one video up on the screen with this system. Here we go. Wrong one. This one. This is what he wanted, didn't get. Those are obviously not U.S. tariffs. Yeah, I hate to run it because I don't like to run things that might insult people who don't, or just cast people in a negative light who don't deserve it, like those U.S. troops. But they were ordered to do that, and then you have the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, many world leaders, and information warfare teams from other countries taking advantage of what went on yesterday. As I said, I don't think that kind of display is typical of what the United States has been, what it aspires to be, at least most Americans. And I think that was reflective in the attendance yesterday. It's not the kind of country the United States is supposed to be, not a democracy. Oh, but it's not really a democracy, it's a republic, but you get what I'm saying. Trump claims he wants to be the president of peace, and yet you get a display like that. That's not what a president of peace should be doing, in my view. And then back to the G7 where Trump is in attendance, and you're getting these I think messages being sent to Trump, especially from Canada and other countries, saying, hey, the United States, if you're stepping back and you don't want to be the leader of the free world anymore, then I guess we're going to be working together to fill the void. And former Canadian Finance Minister Joe Oliver on Times Radio today saying that he expects, just through his analysis, he expects you will be seeing a lot of side deals and side discussions on various issues surrounding geopolitics and economics happening at the G7. And I think he's right. I think we're going to see those kinds of side talks going on a scale like we haven't seen at any previous G7 summit, because the world is definitely changing. And you could say we are in the midst of the evolution of a new world order.
Canada has a very strong incentive to diversify its trade, which now is about 75% with the United States, and we got a real wake-up call from the president who is imposing very strong tariffs against Canada, as well as his talk about Canada becoming a 51st state. So there is a keen strategic interest in diversifying trade, and there's a natural affiliation, of course, economically, culturally, historically with the UK. So that's being pursued, and I think from the UK perspective as well, they would like to diversify trade, and so there's a natural a natural common interest in that regard. Unfortunately, Canada has failed to develop its natural resources to the point of creating infrastructure to tidewater and being able to help the Europeans in a time of crisis by exporting our vast natural resources, energy resources, particularly natural gas, to the UK and the rest of Europe, and during the conflict with Russia. So we've got a lot of work to do to catch up. But in the meantime, we're trying to enhance our trade relationships with Europe, and particularly with the UK.
So keep your eye on that. I think you're going to see the stuff up front during the G7, and then you're going to see there's going to be a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. And the United States, as much as Trump and his team will be there, they are not that interested in. Look, they're just not interested in making deals with the rest of the world. They're pulling back. That's what they're doing. So the rest of the world is going to move forward in new ways. If the United States is going to shrink, somebody's going to fill that vacuum, and the United States will be playing a lesser role in the world. So just keep it in mind, because everything is changing. And back to the G7 with Mark Carney and who else? Keir Starmer. Again, this is what took place shortly after that first initial appearance and statement made to the media. And this is the sit-down photo op.
Citoyens et citoyennes. It is a great pleasure, and I think entirely appropriate, that my first official bilateral in Canada with a head of government is with Prime Minister Starmer. Canada and the United Kingdom, of course, share history, we share values, we share governance. We are in a parliament inspired by the Westminster tradition, but it's much, much more than heritage. This is a foundation of prosperity for all our citizens going forward, and a prosperity based on those shared values expressed through the future: artificial intelligence, critical minerals, new partnerships in security and defense, but all in the pursuit of sustainable prosperity for our citizens. And if I may, just on a personal level, I've learned a lot from the Prime Minister over the years. I've been a great admirer of his and the values that he's bringing to bear to his government and to internationally, particularly as we go to Kananaskis for the G7, are those that we will be promoting.
Well, it's a real honour and a privilege, Prime Minister Mark, my friend, to be the first of your bilateral visits. And we've known each other for a number of years, and that mutual respect, I think, has been at the cornerstone of our relationship. And I think I'm right in saying it's the first time a British Prime Minister has been here since 2018 for a bilateral visit. So I'm very pleased to be able to be here for that. The history and joint working of our countries is phenomenal. For years we've worked together as Commonwealth members, as independent, democratic, sovereign countries working alongside each other on issues of security, defence, trade, the economy, you name it. And we think alike, we work alike. And I think that's not just a reflection on the past, I think it is very much needed in the here and now, and how I think we can forge our future together as we go forward from here. It is particularly timely with the G7 because it is the opportunity under your leadership at this G7 for us to work with our colleagues and other leaders on the most important issues of the day. Obviously, the conflict with Israel and Iran is centerpiece, and this provides the opportunity to talk to our co-leaders about the fast-moving situation and to make our strong case together that there must be de-escalation of this conflict in the interests of the region and of course the world. And so I look forward to working with you, not just in this bilateral where we'll have the opportunity to discuss the opportunities and challenges for our two countries as we go forward. I was so pleased to see His Majesty the King here opening your Parliament. That was a real piece of history. And we get the opportunity now to discuss so many issues here today. So thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
So just the fact that they're meeting like that, that is sending a strong message to the White House. Canada is a sovereign nation, and the UK has Canada's back. So reasserting an 1867 moment, I would say, in the face of those who claim Canada isn't a real country and it should be a 1776 moment for Canadians. So there's a pretty strong piece of symbolism and a strong political message coming back from the other side. Stay with me. More to come.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So Gavin Newsom, of course, I would say Trump's main target right now. California, blue state, the war on liberalism, progressivism, ramping up. California, major target for the Trump administration. And that war between those two really highlighted because of yesterday's military parade, the No Kings protests, and Newsom also posting in, stark contrast to what Trump has been posting. So Newsom speaking like, what have we seen from Trump supporters, pro-Trump sheriffs? We've seen out of Florida a sheriff saying that people who protest might be shot dead. We've seen Trump prior to the military parade saying that protesters at the parade would be met with force. So yesterday we really didn't see protests right there at the military parade itself, but across the nation we did. And Newsom, very different kind of messaging. He also comes out with a post on X calling for protesters to remain peaceful, coordinating, he says, with emergency officials here. This is what he was doing to keep California safe. To those protesting today, this was yesterday, don't match their chaos, rise above it, speak out peacefully. Which honestly is really the right kind of tone to strike when you are a leader. So yeah, go ahead and protest. And he obviously is supportive of a lot of these protests because he's in opposition to where Trump stands on a lot of this stuff, but saying keep it peaceful. Knowing, of course, that there are quite a number of bad actors out there who have been engaged in car burnings and things of that nature. Now, also of note, Trump has been conspicuous because he really has not posted anything kind of addressing in an appropriate way, I would say, the assassination of those lawmakers in the assassination in politically motivated assassination of former State House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark, where they were fatally shot in their Brooklyn Park home yesterday. So Hoffman and his wife Yvette were wounded in John Hoffman rather, and his wife Yvette were wounded in a separate attack at their Champlain residence about 8 miles away. Both are recovering in hospital, and authorities have identified 57-year-old Vance Luther Bolter as a suspect who remains at large. Bolter was posing as a police officer and driving a fake police SUV, allegedly fired at officers at the Hortman home before fleeing on foot. Police found a manifesto, an AK-style firearm, and a list of, or firearms, possibly more than one, and a list of 70 potential targets in his vehicle, including Governor Walz, U.S. Senators Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith, Representative Ilhan Omar, and Attorney General Keith Ellison, alongside abortion providers and pro-abortion rights advocates. Flyers reading "No Kings" were also discovered, referencing those nationwide protests against President Donald Trump's policies yesterday. Walz has come out, along with Newsom, making this statement here.
We're here today because an unspeakable tragedy has unfolded in Minnesota. My good friend and colleague, Speaker Melissa and her husband Mark, were shot and killed early this morning in what appears to be a politically motivated assassination. Our state lost a great leader, and I lost a dearest of friends. Speaker Hortman was someone who served the people of Minnesota with grace, compassion, humor, and a sense of service. She was a formidable public servant, a fixture and a giant in Minnesota. She woke up every day determined to make this state a better place. She is irreplaceable, and we've been missed by so many. Minnesota's thoughts and prayers are with her family, her loved ones, her children, and her parents. My prayers. We're here today because an unspeakable tragedy has unfolded in Minnesota. My good friend and colleague.
Let me just pull that down. See, as I say, Trump being criticized really for what he has not really been saying, and even about what he has said about it. So Trump did condemn the targeted assassination of Minnesota lawmakers, those two Minnesota lawmakers, calling it a terrible shooting and an act of horrific violence that will not be tolerated in the United States of America. He did post on Truth Social saying he was briefed on the attacks, which killed former State House Speakers, Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, and wounded State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette. He noted the FBI, led by Pam Bondi, is investigating, says that they will prosecute those involved. Now, he did address that just in that exchange that was very difficult to hear. And I found the quote for it, just saying he described the attacks as absolutely terrible. and says that the authorities continue to search for the 57-year-old suspect, and those shootings labeled as politically motivated by Tim Walz. Now, as I say, we've seen mixed reactions to Trump's remarks. Some praised his condemnation, while others are saying his language is less forceful compared to his response to other incidents like vandalisms of Teslas, for instance. And the FBI has offered a $50,000 reward for information leading to Bolter's capture. So we'll keep you posted on that story as well. And I have to say, I am surprised that that story is not getting more attention. When you think about what that really was yesterday, clearly the person who did it was politically motivated. You have significant political personalities assassinated, and that story is taking a back seat to, well, look at all the other things that we're even covering here tonight. And we're nearly an hour into this broadcast, and I'm just getting to it now. And at any other time in history, I think that story would be right up top. But it's also a reflection of the way Trump has addressed it or hasn't addressed it, more to the point, not pushing that to the top. It's a sign of the times politically, I think, as much as anything else. And people have become, I guess, even desensitized to a lot of this stuff. Back to, and speaking of assassinations, back to what's going on in the Middle East with Iran and Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu interviewed on Fox, drawing attention again to the attempted assassinations of Trump, and Netanyahu saying that Iran has threatened to try to kill him, saying they want to kill Trump. He says he is enemy number one. I'll run this clip, and I think this highlights really what the thumbnail for our broadcast tonight highlights, which is that there is a desire among some, certainly within the United States, and I think even the Western world, there's a desire for regime change in Iran. I'll comment a little bit more on that in a moment. And it's related to what we're going to hear here.
I want to talk about the nuclear threat. I want to talk about President Trump. You just said Iran tried to assassinate President Trump twice. Do you have intel that the assassination attempts on President Trump were directly from Iran?
Through proxies, yes. Through their intel, yes. They want to kill him. Look, he's enemy number one. He's a decisive leader. He never took the path that others took to try to bargain with him in a way that is weak, giving them basically a pathway to enrich uranium, which means a pathway to the bomb, padding it with billions and billions of dollars. He took up this fake agreement and basically tore it up. He killed Qasem Soleimani. He made it very clear, including now, you cannot have a nuclear weapon, which means you cannot enrich. He's been very forceful. So for them, he's enemy number one.
Yeah.
Look, they also tried to kill me, but I'm his junior partner.
When did
they understand that President Trump is a great threat to Iran's plans to weaponize nuclear weapons and use them.
When did you tell President Trump you were going to launch these strikes?
Look, I've been in constant contact with President Trump. We've known each other for many years. And obviously, we informed our American friends and President Trump, our great friend, ahead of time. We did. He knew about it, of course.
I mean, there were reports that President Trump kind of helped you achieve your strategic surprise by publicly urging you not to attack when he already knew you had decided to do it. So you were closely coordinating with the U.S. throughout this process.
Look, we're fully coordinated, but understand that America, under President Trump, will make the decisions that are best for America. And that's the way it is. He understands that I, as the Prime Minister of Israel, the one and only Jewish state, must make the decisions that are important for the survival of my country, and he will do what is best for America. That is a relationship of mutual respect and mutual confidence.
But I can't remember the date, but it was just before the federal election in Canada. And I remember Pierre Poilievre speaking about the situation in the Middle East and being asked about Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons. And his response, I can't remember the exact words, but it's just the thought that I had stuck in my mind listening to the way that he spoke. And I said to myself, self, Poilievre has been briefed. He knows that there is a plan underway to bring about regime change in Iran. And it's all because of this, the nuclear question and the shifting geopolitical reality into a new multipolar geopolitical reality, as we're being told. And basically the superpowers kind of dividing the world into sections and deciding who gets what. And I think they're almost like Putin and Trump are at a point where they're almost like trading nations, like kids trade bubblegum cards. It was like the response that Poilievre gave, conservative leader, opposition at the time, before he lost his seat in Parliament. His response, to me, it seemed very polished, focused, like it was like talking points. He knew something. And that something is what's unfolding now, I think, because this is clearly coordinated. The United States initially saying no, Marco Rubio coming out and saying, no, we didn't know anything about it. The United States is not involved. And then Trump coming out shortly after, when things seem to be going very well for Israel at the moment, and said, oh no, I knew all about it. But of course, they acted on their own, but I knew. And so it's clear that they've been briefed on all of this stuff. And yeah, I think that Trump would like to stay out of this because he doesn't want to get sucked into a war, because that's not his thing, but it is his thing. As you could see from the military parade yesterday, and Netanyahu, by doing this, is pulling the U.S. closer into this conflict. And it's very difficult to honestly justify through international law and even morally and ethically a preemptive strike. It's more difficult to justify it as a preemptive strike as opposed to a entirely defensive posture. But then, as I look at this stuff unfold, I see such hypocrisy coming from some people who criticize one side but not the other. And what do I mean by that? I mean people who are so against Ukraine because and so supportive of Russia invading Ukraine, saying, well, Putin felt threatened by NATO, so he was totally justified in going in. But now those same people saying that Israel has no right to take a preemptive strike against Iran. A real lack of consistency there. I see real problems with what Russia has done in Ukraine, and I see problems with the way Israel has gone about it with Iran. It's never black and white, though. You have to look at it all, case by case, and look at all of the information surrounding it and then assess based on that. For me, I'm still watching. I've got my popcorn out, but it's not just a movie. It's reality, and it is not entertaining. Frankly, it's kind of horrific. Back to the G7, because, of course, that's where they're talking about all of this. World leaders, Western world leaders, and others, including invited attendees from other countries, including India. And this week we also saw leaders of the Sikh community in Canada expressing concern. This was just a couple of days ago, but I'm going to run this because we didn't highlight this at all. And well, we've seen some people like Charlie Angus, a former New Democrat member of parliament, who is now on a cross-country tour expressing opposition to Donald Trump, who was trying to actually prevent Trump from attending the G7 because of his threats against Canadian sovereignty. We're also seeing people from the Sikh community expressing concerns about India's participation in the G7 summit, because we've had actual assassinations of people in the Sikh community, and Sikh leaders are also highlighting right now threats against other members of their community, including former NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, who is perhaps the most prominent and best known leader from the Sikh community, who is, I guess, is under a threat from forces which you're going to hear may be connected to the Indian government.
Alongside with Moninder Singh, who's the spokesperson for the BC Gurdwaras Council, as well as Sikh Federation Canada. And we're here on behalf of a collective of Sikh organizations, which include the Ontario Gurdwaras Committee, the BC Gurdwaras Council, the Sikh Federation Canada, Quebec Sikh Council, and the World Sikh Organization of Canada. So just today, Global News has reported that a suspected agent of the government of India linked to the criminal Bishnoi gang was actively surveilling Jagmeet Singh, then a sitting MP and leader of a federal party, right here in Canada. And the credible risk to Jagmeet Singh's life prompted a duty to warn and active police protection. So let's let that sink in. India targeted a Canadian politician on Canadian soil. That's absolutely unprecedented. As far as we're concerned, that's an act of war. What other Canadian politician or leader has to carry the burden of representing his constituents, his party, but also protecting themselves from foreign assassination plots? And that raises a question in our community. If Jagmeet Singh, who is the highest profile Sikh in Canada, isn't safe, then what does that mean for the rest of us? And this isn't a one-off. It's the latest and the most brazen in a chapter of transnational oppression directed by India at Sikhs in Canada. In October of last year, you may recall that the RCMP confirmed that Indian agents were involved in multiple homicides, extortions, shootings, all targeted at Sikh Canadians. And that same day, Canada expelled 6 Indian diplomats who were suspected of being involved in these crimes. We later learned from Canada's Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs that Narendra Modi's inner circle, specifically Amit Shah, the Home Minister, personally ordered this campaign of terror, which involved gathering intelligence through India's diplomatic network and working with the Bishnoi gang, who was named in this Jagmeet Singh situation, to orchestrate violence. I'll point out to you that the Bishnoi gang, as recently as last month, took responsibility for the murder of a Sikh businessman in Mississauga. Today, well over a dozen Sikh Canadians continue to live with active duty to warn threats, and that means there's credible threats against their lives, and those threats originate from India. And despite all of this, Prime Minister Mark Carney has invited Narendra Modi to the G7 summit without any assurances that India will stop targeting Canadian Sikhs, without any cooperation on the ongoing criminal investigations, and without a single public concession, without anything about foreign interference that targets our electoral systems, our governments, our citizens. If targeting a Canadian political leader on Canadian soil isn't enough to be barred from entering Canada, then where is our red line? Where do we draw that line? In fact, it seems there is no red line when it comes to our community. It's telling Sikh Canadians that our lives simply don't matter. It says that even when we're targeted for killing by India, and our government knows that the highest level of the Indian government, including Narendra Modi's inner circle, is involved in making these hits, we will still roll out the red carpet and welcome the leader of that government. This isn't a betrayal just of our community. This is a betrayal of Canada's core values of sovereignty, self-determination, justice, and the rule of law. So today, on behalf of Sikh organizations across Canada, we are making some concrete calls for action. Those three demands are, firstly, that a public inquiry into India's foreign interference and transnational oppression be held. Secondly, intelligence sharing agreements with India and any intelligence sharing should immediately be cancelled. And finally, the invitation to Narendra Modi to the G7 summit should be withdrawn unless India cooperates with Canadian law enforcement in the ongoing investigations and pledges to no longer interfere in Canada and to no longer target Sikhs in Canada. But I want us to understand this isn't just a Sikh issue, and that's really been the pain. At least 3 murders in Canada, extortions, shootings, now targeting a federal political leader. This doesn't compare to foreign interference by any other country. And if we allow one community like ours to be targeted like this, it means every Canadian's at risk. We can't afford the double standards that we're seeing, and we have to take a strong stand, just like we've done with China, Russia, Iran. For India, this isn't just an invitation, it's a capitulation. And that's the way it's been framed in the Indian media. This means it's open season on Sikhs in Canada. It's embarrassing for Canada, and it's dangerous for Sikh Canadians. So I'll close with this, that this is a moment that called for courage. We cannot bend over backwards for India. We need our government to start standing up for justice, for accountability, and the safety of all Canadian Sikhs, as well as all Canadians. I'm going to pass it over to Maninder Singh, who's going to give his remarks as well.
Good morning. My name is Maninder Singh. I'm the National Spokesperson for Sikh Federation Canada and also the spokesperson for the BC Gurdwaras Council. I'd like to start off by giving some context as to why Mr. Modi and his decades-long history is so problematic for this invitation, not only over the last 2 years, but it's important to understand that those of us that live with these duty to warns, myself having multiple duty to warns over the last several years, that this is not just an insult, it's adding insult to injury, where the loss of Hardeep Singh Nijjar in 2023 and his political assassination by the hands of the agents of the government of India. I think those are the things that we have to really understand as we're kind of walking through this process of what we've learned today about Jagmeet Singh. The surveillance, the live tracking, that is a norm that's unfortunately become a part of the life of many dozens of Sikh activists in this country. In 2002, Mr. Modi was the Chief Minister of the Indian state of Gujarat. Violence broke out that was state-sponsored. Thousands of Muslims in that minority were murdered in cold blood, rape, arson, looting, all of that took place. Mr. Modi was then banned from the United States due to his role in that violence. He was denied entry under the International Religious Freedom Act. Section 212 of his visa was revoked. And that visa was revoked according to the Immigration and National Act. It bars foreign officials responsible for severe violations of religious freedom. And in 2005, he was not allowed entry. And now we look at a few decades later, and the red carpet is being rolled out for an individual that not only is committing violence in Canada, but has a long history of this type of genocidal violence as well. I think India, in and of itself, when we look at what we see from there, there's intelligence sharing agreements that we're talking about. Intelligence sharing agreements with Canada allow Sikh activists to be tracked, surveilled, pinpointed, their families back home in Punjab harassed. So these security intelligence agreements are not only impacting Sikh lives here in Canada, but they're also impacting their families back home in Punjab, where the Modi regime in its authoritarian state has been known to not only incarcerate, but also torture and make people disappear through various means and staged fake encounters as well. India's press faces the same threat as well. India is ranked 151st out of 180 countries when it comes to press freedom. Multiple journalists are killed every year in India. There's things from Kashmir to the Farmers Act to the Citizenship Act. Every single time, journalists and reporters and media have been subdued by this Modi regime. And Reporters Without Borders has gone far as to say that
India's media has fallen into an unofficial state of emergency since Narendra Modi came to power in 2014, with an average of 2 to 3 journalists killed due to their work every year. That work includes reporting on Kashmir, the farmers' protest coverage, journalists facing criminal charges, including sedition, for reporting on the death of a protester at the hands of Indian state paramilitary in 2021. Due to this environment of harassment and danger, India's media at best is pro-Modi and Hindutva propaganda, which villainizes minority groups and plants the seeds to attack them in a justifiable and necessary means under the guise of national security. When we understand how India operates in its authoritarian state and how that violence has now been exported to Canada, the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar was linked to the agents of the Government of India. Canadian law enforcement confirmed clandestine operations by Indian agents here in Canada, including extortion and intimidation of Sikh activists, especially those of us that advocate for an independent Khalistan. Modi has openly stated that this new India will now go into the homes of those abroad and kill them there. And I don't think we can understand a state any better than that when their prime minister is actually saying that we will go into the homes of those dissidents, those that are actually forming any type of legitimate dissent in foreign countries, especially a country like Canada that has freedoms under its charter, that we will go into their homes and kill them, and they've actually done that. The expulsion of Indian diplomats in October of 2024, when Foreign Minister Melanie Joly announced the expulsion of 6 Indian diplomats due to their involvement in a targeted campaign of violence against Canadian citizens. And make no mistake, these are Canadian citizens. The expelled individuals included Sanjay Kumar Verma, India's High Commissioner to Canada at the time. The highest level of representation India has in Canada was expelled for a campaign of violence against Canadians on Canadian soil. Extortion has continued, intimidation has continued, threats have continued, but the Sikh community remains resilient and will not bow down or go silent to these types of threats and extortion and acts of violence. We will continue on, but the question really lies in the fact that what will Canada do? How will it protect its citizens? How will it protect its freedoms? And how will it ensure that its sovereignty is not undermined? Just yesterday, a Hindu businessman in the lower mainland of Vancouver, Satwinder Sharma, was shot and killed in his business. Just recently, just a few hours ago, the responsibility for that murder was taken by elements of Indian gangs that are operating in India who have openly on social media claimed responsibility for that killing. So this violence is going nowhere. And in October, if we have Indian diplomats that were expelled for this very extortion and murder and violence, we're inviting the Prime Minister of that country, who actually has those Indian agents under their security agencies like RAW that report directly to his office. How are we actually thinking that this individual does not know what is happening? On the contrary, this order, these violent killings, these violent extortions are all actually, in our opinion, coming from that office itself under Mr. Modi's, Amit Shah's, and that inner circle's orders. So this is an issue of Canadian sovereignty and not one of just the Sikh community. It's definitely not one of some type of row between the Hindu and Sikh community. This is something that communities in Canada need to be safe from, this type of violence and transnational repression from foreign powers like India. Finally, I'd like to just comment on why Mr. Modi's invitation here should not have happened in the first place. Inviting Mr. Modi now legitimizes India's actions. It included political assassination, suppression of dissent, and the interference in Canadian affairs, as through the Hohe Commission has already reported out. Canada has credible evidence linking Indian agents to Mr. Nijjar's assassination, yet Modi's government has refused to cooperate with the investigations. The G7 is a platform for democratic nations committed to human rights. India's actions directly contradict these principles, as I've stated. Canada has to send a clear message right now. It will not tolerate foreign interference, nor will it reward a government that targets Canadian citizens on Canadian soil for their political beliefs. India is not a viable trade partner or counterweight to China. This is an illusion. India has proven to be volatile and fragile and not trustworthy or sustainable in this environment due to these political assassinations and the ongoing campaigns of transnational repression, with the murder of Mr. Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Canada, with the attempted assassination of Gurpatwant Singh Pannu in the United States, and the ongoing violence in the forms of extortion and killings of Sikh business persons, and now, especially now, the actual attacks on other communities that are in Canada as well. So in conclusion, Canada has to stand firm against transnational repression and protect Sikh activists and all Canadian citizens from state-sponsored threats. The government has to reconsider Mr. Modi's invitation and rescind and demand full accountability from India. This is not just about Sikh activists, it's about Canada's sovereignty, its democracy, and its commitment to human rights. We must not allow political expediency to override justice. Canada must act decisively in this moment, uphold its values, and protect its citizens. Thank you.
Okay. Now, the G7 is pushing ahead anyway. And as a result, today we saw protests. And this protest presents the other side of that issue.
Kill Modi! Who's the terror? Indian government! 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 Who can ninja? Indian government! Who can ninja? Indian government! Who's the terror? Indian government! Who can ninja? Indian government! Kill Modi! 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 Kill Modi!
And there were other protests or protests as part of the protest. Today, we saw, I believe we had about 1,000 or so marching through the streets of downtown Calgary. We have video. Here we go. Other footage. Get up on the screen. Some people critical because the protest did not stick to its designated parade route where they had permits. I guess they deviated from that somewhat. But then I think some of the people criticizing that are also people who say that you shouldn't need permits to protest. So I'm not sure how valid the criticism is. Speaking of marching, you know, this post here makes a very good point, I think, too. And this is what I was saying earlier. It's not my intention to direct any criticism at all toward U.S. troops. The reality is the troops marching through the streets yesterday during the military parade, I mean, they were ordered to do it. But the fact that they seem to be less polished, in a way, is reflective of the U.S. not being as authoritarian as a lot of other states, where displays of force are as important as the force itself. So, I'll show you what I mean. So here's this post on Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it these days. Jake Bro says, okay, people are genuinely confused why members of the U.S. Army can't actually march in unison like the Russians or the North Koreans or the Chinese. The reason why is because all these soldiers have real jobs in the military, and nobody beyond ceremonial units ever does any marching once out of basic training at their tech school. These soldiers spend their days doing important work to defend our nation. They don't ever practice marching. Trump demanded they all stop being productive at their jobs to waste time and taxpayer money to march in a parade for his amusement.
At Incheon Landing and during the liberation.
Yeah.
gained the nickname Bayonet Division during their...
I'm going to turn that down because the audio has copyrighted music in it, because they were playing during much of this, during the live broadcast, sort of rock and roll 1980s style rock music. But yeah, I mean, it's just not the goose stepping that you're getting out of Russia and the North Koreans with their, extremely polished military performance. Looks a lot more casual, but I think that's really quite right. What this social media post highlights is that, these guys, that's not what they were hired to do. That's not what their jobs are. These troops were, there to, walk by President Trump on his birthday. So not a reflection on them, but maybe on Trump. Now, what else do we have for you tonight? Oh, yes. Now, and speaking of Trump, and that takes us back to the G7, John Rimby sent information about this. Trump being greeted in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. That's the biggest city nearest the actual G7 summit. He's being given an unusual welcome in that Western town. Here, I have to put this up and make this go full screen for you. Everybody's talking about how Trump always chickens out. He's taco man. Well, on the streets of Calgary, you might call this vandalism, but it's not permanent. These things do peel off. Bus boards have been, and billboards on, ad billboards on like bus shelters as well. They're being redecorated with these new crispy chicken sandwich taco only at Taco Hell. G7 edition, G7 special. So of course this is a joke, but these things have gone up in many locations around Calgary, and it is it's making headlines, getting media attention. It's the G7 special, Taco Hell. So that's what Trump is being greeted with in Calgary as he attends the G7. The new crispy chicken sandwich taco. And picture of Trump. So it is funny. It is technically, I guess, vandalism, although it does peel off. Some might say it's art or political statement, free speech, but it is private property. Those benches, the bus shelters owned by Astral Communications, I believe, Astral Media, a Canadian company that has been in the media business for a long time. And they're not entirely happy about it. Here, I've got this report from City News out of Calgary. And thank you, John Rimby out of Alberta, for alerting us to this story. I will give credit where credit is due, though, because City News out there on the prowl and getting the scoop. So I'm going to just run a little clip from City News highlighting this story.
As Calgary's mayor not only touts Calgarians' hospitality, but also is said to give a number of gifts, including a Smith-built white hat to every dignitary that comes, including U.S. President Donald Trump.
It's really important to practice diplomacy. And
I don't think that is the clip we need. Hang on, let me just recue this. I'll recue. We'll get her up for you. Okay, here we go. Let's try it one more time, shall we? There might be an ad. Sure there is.
This is a racist donkey right here, you see him?
With the G7 set to start this Sunday, some Calgarians are welcoming world dignitaries in interesting ways. This sign plastered onto a bus shelter in Calgary's Beltline reading, "New crispy chicken sandwich taco, only at Taco Hell." It appears to be a dig at U.S. President Donald Trump, using the label some investors have given him, TACO, which stands for Trump Always Chickens Out, referring to him imposing tariffs on countries, then reversing course or easing those tariffs. The sign leaving some Calgarians split on if this is a proper welcome to one of the world leaders coming to the summit.
I think it's so cheeky. I really think it's incredible that we have a convicted felon 30 times over allowed to come to our country.
I think Calgary's better than that. You know, we're kind of a, you know, we've got a tough edge to us, but we like to work hard and play hard. That's our thing. And I don't think, you know, bad-mouthing and this and that, it's not really the Canadian way.
City News was there late Friday morning where crews from Astral, the advertising network which manages the ad case, removed the signage. Astral in a statement calling the signage vandalism and saying they are doing an audit for any other acts. The sign comes as Calgary's mayor not only touts Calgarians' hospitality, but also is set to give a number of gifts, including a Smith-built white hat to every dignitary that comes, including U.S. President Donald Trump.
It's really important to practice diplomacy, and so all delegates will be treated with an equal amount of respect.
Now, not every message to dignitaries coming over here to Alberta is meant to be, as one woman put it, cheeky. The Calgary chapter of the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress using this billboard right behind me here, just by the airport, to welcome Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The UCC says it hopes the summit can be used as a way for the world's major leaders to have a unified message standing with Ukraine in its war against Russia.
I hope the other leaders will help Trump to understand the current situation, because I think, unfortunately, President Trump is lost the understanding of this current situation.
In Calgary, Edward Jan, City News.
Okay, so City on the prowl, City is bringing us the taco beat. Just a second here. There we go. Okay, I had to get that audio out of my headphones. Stay with me. When we come back, bad dad Father's Day jokes.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
So I just also wanted to draw attention to another story about those No Kings protests. This one in Salt Lake City. A man believed to be part of a peacekeeping team for the No Kings protest is apparently being shot at a person who was brandishing a rifle at demonstrators, striking both the rifleman and a bystander who was later died at hospital. Police took the alleged rifleman, who has been identified now as Arturo Gamboa, 24 years old, into custody earlier this evening on a murder charge. And Salt Lake City police have said that the bystander was Arthur Falasa Alu, 39 years old. They don't know yet Gamboa appeared to pull out a rifle and then ran from the peacekeepers, but they accuse him of creating the dangerous situation that led to Alou's death. So this seems like a confusing situation still. But we have an arrest, we have charges, and we will likely have more on that tomorrow. So check back because we'll continue to follow that story too. Now, today was Father's Day, and I called my dad. Now, before I get to that, did you guys, I'm going to just look in the chat here. Did you guys call your dads, if you still have dads to call? I hope you do. And I hope you all had a good Father's Day. Just looking in here, don't know. Well, we're going to get to my dad call because, as you know, I've had my dad on from time to time telling bad dad jokes. Well, I thought today I'll call my dad and return the favor. It was my turn to share bad dad jokes. So I came up with a few knee slappers to share with him, and I thought, well, it's got to have something to do with Trump. So here's my Father's Day call to my dad on this Father's Day. I hope you appreciate it and enjoy it.
Happy Father's Day to you.
Oh, well, happy Father's Day to you too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy Father's Day.
I learned all my bad habits on being a father from you.
Oh, there you go.
And the good ones too.
And the good ones too.
Yeah.
And your offspring right now is out working on his car.
Oh, well, he learned all his bad habits from me.
I guess so.
Yeah.
He's wiring up the exhaust.
Oh.
He's got to get welded on or something.
Yeah, that's
hanging.
Oh.
So he's got to get something welded up on it. He's doing that tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
So
that's that chrome exhaust that his friend dropped off here that we had to take up there. I told him he has to be careful because when he sends stuff like that over here, I might steal it and put it on my Volkswagen and make it look like it's actually got some power and might actually go fast. But
you never know,
that would be an illusion. That's okay. I like my old clunker Volkswagen. It's cheap and effective.
That's right. No, I agree with you.
Yep.
I agree with you. They don't need all the bells and whistles that they come up with today. Fortune to cost you to have them, and the whole bit is much better to wind up windows and stick shift, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've got power windows. I like those, but that's as luxurious as I need to get. So everything is fine. So I called to wish you a happy Father's Day. And, you know, everybody on my show loves you. And so, and because you tell such good jokes, they wanted Father's Day jokes today. So if it's okay with you, is it all right if I record this? Because I wrote you some Father's Day jokes for you today so that I thought that would be part of my Father's Day gift to you today.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So here we go. Now just out of curiosity, did you watch the big Donald Trump birthday military parade there yesterday?
No, I didn't watch that. No.
Yeah, you didn't miss too much.
I
watched a little bit of that, but I didn't quite get it. To be honest, it didn't make sense.
250th anniversary of the Army or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what he said, but I think it might have had something more to do with him wanting a big birthday party for himself because it was his birthday yesterday.
Oh, it was his birthday, was it?
Yes, it was. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Some guy, I don't know who it was, said something about, this is absolutely ridiculous. He said, that's what dictators do.
Yes, that's right. Yep, that's exactly what it looked like to me too. I've never seen anything quite like it over on this side of the planet anyway. A little bit. It actually kind of scared me a little bit. Seeing that, but anyway, yeah. But today's Father's Day. He's a father, eh? Yeah. That's pretty scary too. He's a dad. So
what's his kids going to be like?
Well, that's the thing. So I wrote some Donald Trump Father's Day jokes to share with you today. Okay. So do you know how Donald Trump celebrated Father's Day today?
Singing him in the army now?
No, same as he celebrates every year, with golf, Diet Coke, and ignoring indictments.
Golf, Diet Coke, and ignoring indictments.
And ignoring legal indictments, yes. But so that when it was done with that today, he decided to hold a news conference. And so he went to his news conference, and in his opening statement today, Dad, he said he claimed that he is the greatest father in the history of the world. And then he pointed to some important lessons that he's taught his kids over the years as proof. How to evade taxes and plead the fifth. How about doing so far?
Good.
You like these jokes? Well, there's more. Just wait, there's more. Because then at his news conference, he opened it up to questions. And the reporters asked Donald Trump at his news conference what advice he has for new fathers. And he said, simple. Teach your kids two things early: branding and plausible deniability.
Run that by me again.
Okay, I'm getting too complicated. He opened his news conference up to questions, and then the reporters at the news conference asked Donald Trump what advice he has for new fathers, and he said, "Oh, simple. Just teach your kids two things early: branding, like he puts on his Trump towers and stuff, or on all his merchandise that he sells, and plausible deniability. In other words, always have a good alibi for any crimes you commit."
Okay, I get it.
Okay. Oh, but wait, there's more.
Oh,
there's more. Well, the reporters, when they heard that, they challenged him on it. And if I had been there at his news conference, I would have challenged him on that as well, being the reporter that I am. But he didn't care. He just doubled and tripled down on everything that he'd said before and went even bigger with his claims. And he declared himself to be the greatest father in the history of not just the world, Dad, but the entire universe. In fact, the greatest father ever through infinity and beyond. And well, even his kids couldn't just let that one pass. So his kids fact-checked him on that.
Yeah.
And it turns out it was all fake news.
Okay.
The end. How was that? How did I do telling jokes, dad jokes today?
That's dad joke, yeah. The greatest father in the universe. He didn't actually say that.
It's all fake news.
Yeah, all fake news.
Yep, that's right. So do you have any Father's Day jokes for me?
Well, I got it. Yeah, well, yeah. There are four new fathers. They're in the waiting room at the hospital. All their wives are in giving birth to babies, eh? And the nurse comes out and says to the father, or three new fathers, right? Said to father number one, "Congratulations, sir. You're the proud father of twins." Well, he said, "Isn't that ironic?" He said, that is something else. He said, "I work for the Minnesota Twins Baseball Club. Isn't that something?" Well, there you go. So the nurse comes out later and says to the second father, "Congratulations, sir. You're the father of triplets." Well, he said, "How about that?" He said, I work for the 3M company. Isn't that a coincidence?" Wow. So the third time he comes out, she says, "Sir, congratulations. You're the father of quintuplets." He said, "Well, I'll be darned. What a coincidence." She said, "I worked at the Four Seasons Motel." And just the other father, the father, he faints on the floor. And they wake him, they revive him. He said, "What's the matter, sir? What's the matter?" He said, I know I shouldn't have taken that job at Bucks a Million."
You shouldn't have taken the job at what?
At Bucks a Million. Bucks a Million.
Oh, man. Oh.
That's pretty good.
That's a dad joke.
That's a bad one.
My dad, he's got 1 million of them. I'll see you guys back here tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern. On the flip side, this is for my dad and my son, who was out working on his car today.
He started with nothing, just metal and a dream. Wrenches in his hand, a vision so pristine. Day after day, he'd work till the stars shine, building a machine, one of a kind. Grease on his fingers, fire in his eyes. He'd smile at that engine like it was alive. He'd say, "Son, one day this will be yours." But I never knew how much it meant until we closed those doors. Now I'm rolling down memory lane behind the wheel of that old Mustang. Every shift, every turn I feel him near. The sound of that engine, it's my dad I hear. Filled with pride with his hands and his heart. Every drive brings me back to the start. In this dream car, he's never too far. I remember my dad every time I start. He taught me to drive, not just on the road, but through life's twists and turns and heavy loads. Now when I hit the gas and the tires start to sing, it's like he's riding shotgun with the wind under our wings. He's there in the chrome, in the roar of the gears, his laughter in the echoes, his wisdom through the years. This car ain't just metal, it's a piece of his soul, and every mile I ride I feel it whole. Now I'm rolling down memory lane behind the wheel of that old Mustang. Every shift, every turn I feel it near. The sound of that engine, it's my dad I hear. Filled with pride with his hands and his heart. Every drive brings me back to the start. In this dream car, he's never too far. I remember my dad every time I start. Through the rain and the rust, it still shines so bright, like the love he put into every late night. And though he's gone, I know he's still here. In every curve of this car, I see him clear. Now I'm rolling down memory lane behind the wheel of that old Mustang. Every shift, every turn I feel the near. The sound of that engine, it's my dad I hear. Filled with pride with his hands and his heart. Every drive brings me back to the start. In this dream car, he's never too far. I remember my dad every time I start. Yeah, I remember my dad every time I start.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.